Family and friends, please come and take a seat. Thank you so much, Leslie. Let's take a seat, everybody, and make a start. Is everybody coming inside now? That's not a question, actually. It should be a statement. Everybody's coming inside now. Right? Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Hi, Twiggy. Great. It's good to see people coming inside. Okay. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Ah, nice. Greetings. Please take your seats and close your eyes for the briefest of prayers. Dear God, we're here, and you brought us to this place, and we thank you. Amen. Now, family, feel free to open your devices and follow our meeting in the bulletin that you may well have downloaded from the Reunion website. You tap on the programs tab, but it was in announcements today. One of the things I'm really going to advise you to do is to make sure that you go onto WhatsApp and look at your announcements as they come through. So if you look at your WhatsApp messages from today, you will see the program that's just about to unfold before you today. My name is Pauline Maturi. Let me say this. I identify with the families of the Reunion. But I was born Pauline Brown, Brown with an E. Brown with an E. And my mother's maiden name is Simon. I have been working with the Family Reunion Coordinating Committee since July 2023. And I feel especially honored on their behalf to be able to welcome each and every one of you to this event, in this space, at this time. How did you get here? By bus? By taxi? By e-scooter? By expensive hire vehicle? By plane? By boat? On foot? Whether it was one or a variety of these modes, you are here, and we are here. The Browns, the Phillips, the Simons, and those families bring along all of their dear, dear friends and are supported by this church and this community. Everybody's here, and we are so grateful for your attendance and your time. I'm really quite reluctant now to do this, given what's just happened. But as Diana Ross used to sing, and she probably still does, I want you to reach out and touch somebody's hands. You see, the thing is, if I tell that to you all, we've got another 20 minutes trying to bring you all back. But what I will do is ask you to at least turn around and face somebody and give them, reach out and touch their hand, and briefly just remind them who you are. Yeah, yes. Reach out and touch. You touched the flesh. You did? Thank you, everybody. Oh, look at Marla coming down looking like, looking like a snack. Go, girl. I am now going to do something very presumptuous. It is going to land me in a world of pain. But it will have been worth it. The 2024 family reunion would not have reached this point with us sitting in this church were it not for the vision, the energy, the direction, the determination, and indeed the intimidation of the formidable Sylvia Hamyang. Next Saturday night, God willing, she will deliver the formal vote of thanks at the closing service. But she won't thank herself. So in anticipation of a blessed week ahead, I would like to ask you to show again your appreciation of her leadership in bringing this event to fruition. Cue applause! Hey, she's right there. She's right there. And you know she can't see, which is what she will often tell you. Me can't see. So she needs to hear. So I'm going to ask you to clap yet again. We love to sing. We love to sing. So let's go for a good old church standard. We even sang it yesterday. I was well vexed. When we all get to heaven, which is 633, and that will be followed by a prayer from Sister Iristine Rhodes. You're going to stand up, you're going to sing, we're going to bring off the roof of this sucker today. Thank you, cause. Everybody's cause. Please stand. You know the words. They're up there, but you know the words.
Okay, let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we're indeed grateful for this opportunity granted us here this evening. Father, we have just sung When We All Get to Heaven. And if so far what we have experienced is a foretaste of what it will be, we want to be there. Be with the proceedings this evening. Help that those who have come here would have been so blessed that they would not regret any moment of it. With those who are still traveling to get here, bring them here safely. I want to thank you for having brought those who have brought from overseas safely here, dear Lord. And may we look forward to a time together that will be a foretaste of what it will be in heaven. Be with us. Bless tonight's proceeding again, we pray, for Christ's sake.
Thank you, Sister Rose. Please be seated. We're going to hear from Pastor Brown, my Uncle Silton. And then we're going to have some insights into the three branches of the families, Simon, Phillip, and Brown, from our family historians, Stafford Brooks, Eldith James, and Clarence Brown. You ready, Uncle? Let's do it.
See, I answered truthfully. Good evening to everybody. A moment like this one is never properly ready for. When one isn't sure whom you're meeting, what the circumstances are going to be like, what the atmosphere, ambience is like. And you know, I'm so glad I decided to abandon any notes and any real serious sense of organization in my remarks, because already I realize, had I the few things I was putting together, I realize that the first major thing is already discarded. Not quite. It was so important that what I thought would be the springing of a surprise was interfered with by two relatives of similar capabilities and competencies. I had planned to say, I know there's going to be a time when they would have vote of thanks and so forth, but in the opening remarks, there are two people that I feel right up front that we need to show appreciation for because of their hard work in this matter. And one of the two got up and said, now, and gave you a whole little story there. And the truth is, one of the most important words which you might have missed is intimidation, she said. When she said that, and that sort of was behind why I felt it was compelling to make the acknowledgement up front and not at the end. And I knew who by nature had to do the most of the seeing work. Have mercy. But I don't know how somebody could be so involved and so dominant in a program when you cannot see. And my dear niece Pauline was there harassing her daughters to help her carry the burden to make sure this gets executed. And so I am in deep appreciation for the kind of energy, the kind of dynamism, the kind of stick-to-itiveness that has been demonstrated by these ladies in the family. Family is important. Whether you know it or not, you better believe it. Family is important. It is critical. it impacts people and has a lot to do with individual success and adjustment in life. I don't have time to tell you. But I could endorse that. You see, I could tell you from experience. Because, by the way, my name is Silton Brown. Kip, you haven't even met me yet, you know, man. I was trying to meet you. You're running with the boys and they didn't stop you. Twiggy was running too, and then she then came, and so I had an opportunity to have a nice little chat with Twiggy and met her. But you know, it is interesting just connecting with these families. But see, I am the last of 9 in the biological clan of Clarence and Estella Phillip Simon Brown. Hold a minute, wait. Hold a minute now. You see, they're interfering with what I'm trying to begin to get you to be stimulated about. I didn't forget my mother's name. Stop it. You're rude. But you see, my mother's maiden name, my grandmother's maiden name was Phillip, who got married to a man, Simon, whom I know as Grandpa Simon. And my mother then, my mother married Clarence Brown. So my mother her mother was Phillip, her father was Simon, and she married Brown. So all of them tied up in my mother. And of the 9 of us, I am the last of 9 biological children. So I was raised partially by my parents, Clarence and Estella Brown, but by all these bigger siblings, because those were the days when you had to have respect. And respect was not only to parents and other adults, but to your bigger siblings. So I'm kind of glad that I got a break somewhere after Benny. I managed to get a break somewhere that I drop off the sister and brother. So is Sister Vel up to this day that I'm 75? And Brother Leroy up to when he was alive a year and a half ago? And Brother Benny when he was around? So thank you, Herman, for giving me a break to call you Herman straight without the brother thing. But you know, I knew that some of them had much bigger input into my life than others because of the circumstances. And interestingly, one you didn't hear of, Gwen, she's here with her husband Arnold and her children. For the 2 years that I was at Golden Grove School, I end up living with Gwen in Golden Grove and Arnold before we were transferred over to Princess Margaret School, and I ended back at Liberta. And interestingly, I had this kind of searching question that I never got the sort of push to ask on, for whatever coincidence, sometime around Benny's. I said, Sister Vel, by the way, Sister Vel is the first one. Shh. I told you I was last of how many? Okay. Sister Vel, the number 1 child in the family, she has 10 children. So I have 10 nieces and nephews from this one sister. But you know the question I was asking her a few months ago? Sister Vel, I am kind of trying to find out, how in the world did I come about living in your house in my last high school years there at Princess Margaret School? Now, I'm not going to tell you. Sorry about that. Sorry for the disappointment. But you know, when I asked her, she said, boy, what question you ask me? I already decided I am not going to tell you or anybody the reason, as long as. And then after I pressed a little, she then gave me the reason. And I have a new appreciation for the value of family and in the life of individuals. I am not a product of me. What God has given to us, what God has given to family, what God has given to the extended church and village family, these are what make us. And so I beg you to value family. By God's grace, this family has had some key values: love and service to God, love and service to people, hard work with diligence and integrity. These three values have run through us over the generations and is responsible for what we have become. I urge you to take God seriously, take family seriously, and enjoy mingling with us and enjoy. I am going to get off of here quickly. Two things more I need to say. One, I am looking forward to learning about the family properly. And so the main feature that's coming tonight is important for you to pay attention to, because I do not yet properly understand all my cousins and the how of it. Although you see the three names there. And so I am anxiously looking forward to getting some more. And I'm not even going to say getting it straight, but some more tonight. Because when my son told me maybe, 20-something years ago, Daddy, is it true that Miss Phillip is my cousin? I said, that is Ignacy Aaron she was. Ignacy Aaron. And I said to him, well, boy, all I tell you, everybody who tell you you're a cousin, just accept them. And call Sister Vel and find out how it goes. That was my instruction to him. Sometime, just a few years ago, he stayed right here in Antigua and said, Daddy, what's the name of your maternal grandmother? I said, I don't know. He said, okay, that's Sarah Phillip. And then he started going down. Now it's my son who is beginning to tell me, as they say, who I belong to. So by the time between that and coming to this very church's 115th anniversary, and then making some historic connections, I began to put some things together and realize, okay, that Phillip is the same Phillip from where Roma comes, and a heap of exciting things about Grandpa Simon and that Phillip lady who went by and got the man to come and check out the doctrines properly. and got down to the point where I realized by biological deduction that grandmother must have been baptized when she was 3 months pregnant with my mother. And so things happen. Things happen. There are those of you who may not belong or feel sufficiently belonging to the Brown, Phillip, Simon family. Let me tell you, in Antigua, no feel, no way. We don't just hear the words welcome. Feel a part of what. That's how we have been. We have been always open to people. There are lots of people who have become part of our family that were not biologically so. And we have become very, very close in those relationships. You will hear about Boxy or Fitzroy and so on. And interestingly, he just happened to have had the name Brown. Which leads to another story. The final thing is this. You will hear about Brown. You see, she started it. Brown with an E and Brown without an E. Let me tell you quickly. Dismiss that. Don't let that be a headache to you. I go all over the world and they say, oh, you're Brown with an E, so you are related to me. People from Nevis, there are lots of Browns, some in Newfield, some in Old Road, that don't have connections to us. Are you with me? And the Brown with an E and without an E is cancelled. And here's why I will do that as my last act quickly. Mine is a Brown with an E, as is Pauline's. Shh. Let me prick a bubble. My father doesn't have any E. And some of his brothers take the E and others not. And so the E or non-E doesn't make any difference. That's why we need to check the proper line by those who know it better than me. And so I will be listening and learning with you. Such a joy to have you all. God bless you. Love you all.
Thank you, Uncle. Before we have those historians come and tell us about the Simons, the Phillips, and the Browns, we're going to have Lowen sing for us. Lowen has just come. She's like an international star. She's just come off a plane, and her voice is, she said, it's going to be a challenge. I said, are you going to still sing for us, Lowen? She said, yes, I am. So I really want you to put your hands together for faithfulness and for Lowen as she sings for us before we have our historians. Lowen.
Good night.
Good night.
I asked my brother to accompany me, so he's coming. Wendell Burton.
Toast.
The family who prays will never be parted. Their circle in heaven unbroken shall stand. God will say, enter, my good faithful servants. The family who prays never shall part. Satan has parted our fathers and mothers, filling their hearts with his envy and hate, heading their pathways down to destruction, leaving their children like orphans to stray. The family who prays will never be parted. Their circle in heaven unbroken shall stand. God will say, enter, our good faithful servants. The family who prays never shall part.
Wars and tornadoes are taking our loved ones, leaving us tearful with sad aching hearts. But we shall join them over the river. But the family who prays
Never shall part. The family who prays will never be parted. Their circle in heaven unbroken shall stand. God will say, enter, my good faithful servants. The family who prays never shall part. The family who prays will never be parted. Their circle in heaven unbroken shall stand. God will say, enter, my good faithful servants. The family who prays never shall part. The family who prays never shall part.
As mentioned previously, we have 3 historians. Oh, okay. Queen, I come. Beg y'all stand up. Queen, I come. This is Sister Vel, Aunt Vel. Mrs. Velva Burton is in the house. Wow. Everything can stop now. Everything can stop now. Boy. That's special. Aunt Vel came out. Beat him now because he was not a good boy. As I said, to hear more about the family history that Uncle Silson says is really important for us to know, we have 3 family historians. And speaking first of all about the Simons is going to be Stafford Brooks. And I ask you to put your hands together as he tells us our Simon story.
Well, good evening, everybody. Oh dear. This is really so good because I've got to say to you, you took my thunder away this. And then Sylvia actually said to me, Stafford, we have limited time. And so as a result, I tried to time it to make sure it was only going to be 3 minutes and what included everything. And at the end, I'm going to jump to the end. At the end, I said, before I close, I want to thank a very special person. And you took my thunder away. Okay, so, and then, of course, Sultan said exactly the same thing, but he was more eloquent and able to do it. So I'm going to do as Sylvie says and try and keep it very, very short. Now, I am Stafford Brooks. I am not a historian. I actually am a police officer. Oh, I was, and I retired 10 years ago. So what I do is I do make a lot of inquiries, and I try to get lots of information. And I've been doing that since I first came back to Antigua when I was 45. I'm actually 70 this year. So I've been coming back, and every time I've been going and taking little pictures, and people were saying, "Well, you take a picture of me for?" and so on. And now it's come to fruition. They're saying, "Oh, I actually realized what you were doing." So what I was trying to do is just get to know who everybody was, because Sylvia came to my wedding. No, I was invited to Sylvia's wedding. A little bit of upsets there, because I'd go to Leicester looking, as men do, and Mummy said, "Do please, don't go there." Of course, Ivan, you got the prize, and okay. So let me just. I say good evening, all. I'm Stafford Brooks, and I will be representing the descendants of Grandma Augusta Peters, nee Simon. Of course, she was one of the six amazing sisters who our gathering this week has been made possible. Ideally, if I knew Pauline, I would have wanted you to see the six, but I've only got 2 pictures. Okay. Granny married a gentleman called Jeremiah Peters. And as a result of that union, there were how many children? 9 children. And 2 of them were male, obviously, so they kept the names Peters. But obviously the girls got different names. So, of course, as a family is growing up, you don't know that it's a Simon because they've got different names now. From my research and subsequent inquiries, the 3 eldest children, Alexander, Myrtle, and Geraldine, were limited by Antiguan opportunities and circumstances and answered the call by the British government to go to England looking for that elusive pot of gold. I never found it, but... Right, the other 3, which was, I'll start with the youngest, Professor Melvin Peters, the youngest of Granny's children, settled in America, as did his older sisters, Rosebell, Roberts, and Violet LaPlatine, but nee Peters, obviously. Now, those that were in England, the bond between the British siblings and their families were very strong. And as a result, I got this purpose of we've always got to keep the family together. And sometimes, I'm sorry for my wife, but at Christmas we could have as many as 44 people for Christmas dinner. So, but we kept that up. And you know what was nice? If you were the oldest one in the room, you had the final say. We had some very well-educated, Pauline, Sylvia, the young ones went to university and David, Ivan and David and all of them young boys, they have a way about them. We would be wrong and strong, but because we didn't go to university. But David would say, "Oh, well, Stafford, I would have to agree to disagree." But I had that authority because I was the oldest one, and that's how the family grew. Now, I'm not sure why this the bond was so strong. I thought it was because there was only a few Antiguans in England, or just simply because of the good family closeness. Now, Rachel, Tizina, and Nellie, who some people know as Dutsy, remained on the island, and our grandmother, well, I'd say my grandmother because we're talking about Augusta Simon, her family is as follows. 9 children, we've mentioned those, 29 grandchildren, I'm one of those 29. Ian, I think Ian is somewhere in the, Ian Hobson is one of those 29. Vernell, you know, there's quite a few of us, but 29 of us are her that's our grandmother. I started to count, and when I got to 74, I realized that the great grandchildren was numerous. So at 74, and seeing as some of them weren't answering me when I was saying, just tell them, you know, I said, okay. So I'll say too numerous to count, right? And then so if anybody comes across a person who calls herself Sassika, she's a great, Morven, I keep saying it wrong. And yes, they are the great-grandchildren, you know. Then you've got my children, you know, and there's nearly 100 of that group who are great-grandchildren. And of course, Wayne, my son, has 3 children, you know, so I don't know where does it go to then? It's great. You know, so it's an amazing thing. How can one lady be so big? So we've got the American family, the British family, and the ones in Antigua. No wonder you need to have these meetings because it's really necessary. And I say, when my son was playing and going to Leicester and so on, he came across Emily, and he said, Dad, do you know? And my mom said the same thing, do please. Don't go there. You know, so yes, finally, we've already mentioned Sylvia, so it's really important that we acknowledge that many years ago, that was her dream. And so we've done it. We've actually come to the day, and we're here, and I'm so happy. I'm with my wife, and I've actually got an app on my pad that if you come in and you say your name, then I can say how you're related right down to the youngest child that you've got, if I know about them. So that connection is there. I want to thank you all for turning up and making this really special, not just for me, but as far as I'm concerned, Sylvia and I think we've been waiting so long for this, and it's actually come. And we're here. They say you give us 70, he says 70, and just doing it, and I'm still here. So every day I'm going to bless, and in that time I've been able to meet you all. So thank you so much. Come up and have a chat with me, or come and speak to my cousin Ian or Vernell, and we can give you the backdrop on our individual families. The last thing is there was a gentleman who came in and played the piano. That impresses my family. Because I don't know what it is our parents did, but they instilled this musical ability. And when I came to Antigua many years ago at 45, I went into St. John's Church and I could hear my auntie going like this and saying no, no. And it just reminded us of Uncle Xander, who used to do that in Camp Hill. And everywhere I came into this church and the music was going just the same. So that's a family trait, the music. And it really is great. Thank you for the young man who was playing earlier. I tried to film it, a little bit of it, so that I can show Wayne that it can be done here, not just in England or in America with Ian. Thank you all, and I hope that gives you a little insight as to the Simon, Augusta Simon side of the family.
Thank you. We now move to the Phillips family. And I'm representing the Phillips today is Aldith James, who's just come in today as well. Round of applause, please, for Aldith, and thanks to our researcher, historian, interested person.
Good evening, everyone. So good to be back here in Liberta, back here in New Bethel. Fond memories here. Just a quick story before I begin. I remember the first time I came to New Bethel. I sat in Sabbath school with, I think it was Uncle Noel or one of my uncles. And I didn't know at the time, but Brother Haynes Brown was teaching Sabbath school. And he was teaching Sabbath school in a way that I've never heard Sabbath school preach. And when I went home after with Grandma and Grandpa, I was like, so why is the pastor teaching Sabbath school? Because I thought Brother Brown was the pastor, but fond memories here at New Bethel. So I've been tasked with giving some background on the Phillip ancestry that just about everyone in here shares. The late great political activist and Pan-Africanist Marcus Garvey coined the phrase that says, a people without a knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. I remember growing up, and oftentimes we would come here to Antigua, I would hear my father say things like, he would say, Sister Vel, for call Mama sweet lamb auntie. Or he would say something like, Sylvia, for call Mama auntie. And I realized after the years that that was the informal way of conveying the family connections and the familial connections that we had. Little to my knowledge, I didn't realize it was actual auntie. In 2008, when my third daughter was about to be born, I began this journey of building the family tree because my children had to know where they came from, who they belonged to. Little did I know that this would take on a life of its own. So, from this family tree building effort, an incredible story came to be. The story goes something like this. Over a century ago, I think, Dell, we can put up that image. Over a century ago, almost a different time period, a young man by the name of Zachariah met a beautiful young lady named Isabella. He fell in love with her, and they got married. Isabella and Zachariah had 5 children. Those 5 children were Samuel Phillip, Keturah Phillip James, Johnny Phillip, Sarah Phillip Simon, and Alice Phillip. Those are the 5 siblings of Zachariah and Isabella. Something I just learned yesterday when we went to visit Dr. Phillip, Cecil Phillip, who is a direct descendant of, the ones who are still carrying the Phillip name to this day. This Isabella Phillip, there was a mango tree, I don't know if it's still here in Liberta, but there was a mango tree with the name Bella. To our knowledge now, we are told that that tree was named after Isabella. Now, Isabella is, for most of us, our great-great-great-great-grandmother. For some of us who are older, it might be just great-great. But that's who Isabella Phillip is. She and Zachariah are our common ancestry. So as the years went by, the children grew up and found their own love. So out of these 5 children came the families. And I want to do a little exercise, and hopefully you guys can do this so that you can stretch your legs. When I call a family name, if this is your last name or your mother or father's last name, would you please stand? So out of these 5 siblings came these families. Are there any Phillips in the house? Anyone with the last name Phillip? So these are the individuals who are still carrying the Phillip name. Are there any Simons in the house? Anyone with the last name Simon, or your parent carry the last name Simon? All right. Any James in the house? James. How about any Matthews? Are there any Matthews in the house? Peters? Any Peters in the house? Or your parents' name were Peters? And then we have the Josephs. Any Josephs in the house? No Josephs? Okay, well, this one we're definitely going to have. Do we have any Browns in the house? All right. Are there any Brooks in the house? All right. Any Burtons in the house? Are there any Francis in the house? Francis. Any Jacksons in the house? All right. How about any Weavers? Are there any Weavers in the house? Weavers in the back, Weavers. Any Tobit in the house? Tobit? You have Tobit back here? All right. And then, this is not last, but this is the only information I have so far. I'm sure there's more, but any Richards in the house? Sorry, that wasn't last. Sorry, we have Williams. Jarvis. Any Jarvis? Roberts. Any Roberts in the house? Roberts. And lastly, any Edwards? Edwards. All right, we have Edwards. There's another image that we're going to put up on the screen, Dell, the other image, the other two images. These are images that we created out of Genie that expand on the family tree or let you see directly the family tree, because doing it on Genie can be somewhat intimidating because our family is so huge, it's hard, somewhat difficult to navigate Genie to see just how we're connected to everyone. So we created these images, and what we're going to do is we're going to send these electronically to everyone so you can see. What we broke this down by is that for Isabella and Zachariah, we broke down their sons on one of these images. And then the other one, we broke down their daughters on the other image. So you will see all the families and all the individuals that are connected through these two images that will be sent out to you. So in closing, I would like to recognize and express thanks and appreciation to some individuals that were and continue to be integral in curating the information we now have in our family tree. My dad, Percival James, like you said, he always was giving me the information on who was connected to who. Meldo, as some of you know him, Meldo. Uncle Noel, of course. My cousin Travis James, he was the oracle of the family who carried on the family's history from Uncle Austin. You guys know Austin James. And then cousin Aminga, who we spent countless hours talking on the phone about this evening and about the family. I can't tell you, in the past few months, I've spoken to her just about multiple times a month. And it has been a pleasure getting to know her and learning a lot of information from her. So it's been my pleasure to get to know Sylvia. Also, Clarence, and talking with Clarence and bouncing information off each other has been really good to do that experience. And Stafford, of course, and Mignonette. Thank you. Because of our joint efforts, I really believe we have one of the largest West Indian family trees there is. If someone can prove me different, I will be surprised. From Zachariah alone, and this is conservatively speaking, and I actually think this is very wrong just by looking at the people in here. From Zachariah alone, Jeannie is telling me that there are well over 700 descendants of Zachariah Phillip who descended from him. 700. And I think that's very conservative. Just looking in here, I think we have a few hundred people. And there are countless of them who are not here. So I think it's substantially more than that. I encourage you to log on to Genie. If you haven't been on it yet, please come meet up with Clarence or myself. Give us your name and maybe your parents' name, your email address, and we'll be able to connect you into Genie so you could do. It's an amazing experience. I'm telling you, it's going to take on a life of its own because you're going to see some connections that, like myself, I didn't know were there. Of particular interest as well is if you can share pictures. We are particularly interested in anyone has pictures of previous generations, older generations that may have passed on. If you have any of those pictures, we really want to do this, because it's not just for us, it's for the generations that are to come. We want them to know what their great-grandparents or grandparents, who they were, and also any biography information you have on these individuals. In closing, in Genesis 12:2, Yahuwah promised to Abraham, he made this promise. He said, I will make of you a great nation and bless you. And in chapter 22, verse 17, he says, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the sea. I dare to say, with the number of descendants of Zechariah and Isabella, God fulfilled this promise in part through them. Thank you for your attention, and have a good rest of the reunion.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Eldred, for that. It was just referenced by Stafford how music features in this family. We have a lot of talent. Hezro was the pianist that I think that Stafford was praising too much, in my opinion. But there you go. It's wonderful that we're going to have a violin solo. We have a very eclectic space. Violin solo is going to be presented to you right now by Chinyere Sampson. Thank you so much, sir.
So you wanted me to explain my connection. So my mother is Cecilia Sampson, who is formerly a Brown. Maylin Brown is her middle name, so that's my connection to the Brown family.
Yes. Thank you. Marvelous. Again with Hezroy and accompaniment. Fantastic. And finally, our theme song, let me just ask you to practice in your head. Our theme song is Bind Us Together. And when Clarence has finished presenting the Brown history, we're going to sing Bind Us Together. We're going to have a benediction and we'll have some announcements. But for now, I'm going to ask you to put your hands together for Clarence Brown, who's going to tell us about the Browns.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to try my best to summarize the Brown family tree. I think if I knew it was going to be this formal, I'd ask one of my other cousins to do this. But Aldith started compiling this family tree in 2008. And that's kind of how I got roped into it. I'm probably the least qualified in terms of knowing the family tree, and that I never lived in Antigua. Everything that I know in terms of the family tree, Aunt Vel has given me a huge chunk of it. I've asked other cousins, aunts, uncles for the pieces, and I basically put it together online, again, because of Aldith's prodding, okay? So he takes a bunch of credit for starting this whole journey for all of us. And yeah, okay. I'm going to focus on the Brown side. And interestingly, I'm going to jump off of Brown really quickly because no one really knows where Brown came from, right? Arthur Brown is as far back as it goes in terms of the Brown name, okay? That is, by the way, I'm the grandson of Clarence Brown. I'm the son of Silton Brown. And Clarence Brown's dad, his name was Arthur Brown, okay? But where he got the Brown from, no one knows. So really, Browns are Baileys. Okay, his mom is named Frances Bailey, and that is really the furthest back it goes. We don't know who his dad was, and so if anyone knows, we could plug that hole, but we've been trying to track it down. Frances Bailey was a white woman, and so we've gotten really good information on her. Where Arthur came from, we have no idea. But he was born probably around 1853, which is, and this is doing the math, going backwards from his death, and doing Aunt Vel's math, we ended up roughly in the 1853, which is about 20 years after abolition, all right? So he is, Arthur is the son of Frances Bailey, okay? Again, that Brown enters at that point. He's named Arthur Brown, and this is where the Brown family comes from there. So we're Baileys until we know where that Brown comes from, all right? Right, all of us. Yes.
Because he was giving me the history that that Brown person was a police officer that was brought here by the British to help control the slaves from Africa. So that Brown, who had the British name Brown, he's actually an African person who was used here by the British as a police officer, and that's how he entered.
Yeah, that aligns pretty well with what we know, because he definitely was an African, right? We definitely know that, yeah. no, in all seriousness, I think any information anyone could find, it would be really incredible to kind of keep going up that line. We do know, for instance, Frances Bailey, her dad's name was Joseph Bailey. He supposedly worked for the Royal Navy at one time. And so we do have some information there. We believe we could get really good records on Joseph's service. The Royal Navy obviously kept really good records of service members and that type of stuff, right? Okay, so that is Arthur, right? So we have the Francis Bailey had 12 kids with this African man, all right, that we know of, all right? And I think there's a lot of descendants of Clarence Brown here, but Clarence was one of 12, and I'll list the siblings. So we have some reference here. Burchell Brown, a brother, right? I'm probably most familiar with that family because a lot of them grew up on St. Croix with me, right? Yeah, so actually my daughter is classmates with one of Burchell's great-grandsons, right? And so Burchell, he passed away in St. Croix some time back. Then Dorothy Brown, Ambrose. Yeah. Is there anyone here from that family? Hey. Right. And Dora. Then Charles Theophilus Brown. Okay. Right. Matilda Brown Francis. I'm calling names, but there's really interesting stories behind some of these names, and again, some of you know the stories better than I do, but I'll keep going down the list. There's Bertha, and she has a last name of Weatherhead, right? Bertha. Francis Jarvis, my Franny. Then there's Florence Charles and Flory. Then there was a son, Herman Brown. All right. I think Anvel Herman is the one that went to Cuba. Yes. Okay. So I think the story there was he had left here, going to work in Cuba at some point, and he passed away without having kids. Okay. He had a tragic accident, I think, soon after reaching Cuba, and died, a pretty young man, as far as if Anvel could give me a nod of approval on that before I spread misinformation. Then there's Ethel Brown, another girl. You right? Yeah. Okay. We need to talk, eh? Fill in some gaps. And then Anna Walter, all right? Okay. Okay, there's some story of one of these ending up in Panama. So that's Matilda. Is there anyone here from that family? Does anyone here know any part of that family? Anyone, any of her descendants, anything? Really? Yeah. Okay, and so so Clarence Brown, one of 12, and those were the siblings that we know of. It's a lot going on, and I think over the next couple of days we'll be able to learn who is who. Again, I could give a little bit more details on the descendants of Clarence Brown. I think we have a few, but I believe the oldest living sibling, or the oldest living person, let me say, in our family that I know of would be Cousin George. Am I wrong? I think he celebrated 100 years recently, right? And correct. So that's Uncle T's. That's Uncle T's son, right? Okay, so we had another 100. Okay. 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 I believe Anvela has a crown in the house. It's Anvela is the first child of Clarence and Estella, and she's here with us. Okay. She is by far the most knowledgeable about the family tree. And a big part of my effort to just write is making sure that that information lives on as long as possible. The youngest person in the family, who is that? I wanted to track that down, but did we have any births this year? Yeah. Is it? No. Huh? Kingston, is he here? Okay. Well, we'll battle it out. Stand up, please. Turn around, guys. I think that's the youngest member of the family. Okay. Clarence and Estella had Vel, Haynes, Silton, Sylvia, Norbert, Gwen, Herman, Leroy, Urbane. Yes, Urbane, Gwen, Leroy, Herman, Norbert, Sylvia, Silton, Haynes, and Vel. Okay? And I think we have representatives from all of them here. Okay? We have Fitzroy, who I believe I saw here as well. Boxy. Okay? I know him as Uncle Boxy, but I think his government name is Fitzroy. I'm going to stop there. It gets really hairy really fast, right? Yeah, so again, I want to thank Aldit for pulling this together. I think there's a lot of information out there. I think if you speak to a lot of relatives, they're like, that's my aunt, that's my cousin, but I don't know how, right? And this family tree gave us a chance to get the facts sorted out, and it's been really helpful. And again, Al, thanks for pushing this, for making it a priority, and for organizing this, and Antominga for forcing me to do my part. Thank you. Yes.
I just want to thank everyone for the information. It was amazing. All of you did well, the presentations. I'm just a little bit, I feel like I'm not hearing about grandmom enough, and maybe how to tie her in. Because I really haven't heard the Simon story yet. I mean, I'm just saying. Anybody agrees with that? Because some people are asking that. And you know, grandmom.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I think when me and Al sorted it out, Al kind of dealt with her family tree, right? And so I kind of picked up with Brown, Estella come down, but above Estella, I think Al covered that a little earlier on, as well as Brooks. Okay, Well, I'm going to pass this on to someone a little more qualified to address.
I am not more qualified, but I'm Velva's son. So what happened there, we have who we call Thomas Simon. All right, so Thomas Simon is the patriarch of the Simon side. So Thomas Simon had a wife by the name of Sarah Phillip. All right, so when Aldith spoke about Bella and Zachariah, they would have come along that line of the Phillip. So that Bella mango tree is located about a mile where I'm pointing in the wilderness, and it's still there. So from that, the Simon though, there are still some issues regarding the Simon. As history tells us that there were 7 Simon brothers who emerged in Antigua through that same corridor, that dark corridor that the brown came from, that we didn't identify at first, from slavery. All right? The understanding is that all the Simons in Antigua are related. All right? So there's a historian by the name of Paddy Simon. I don't have all the specifics from him yet, but let's hope we get it. But Thomas Simon and Sarah Phillip created the balance to that side of the family, to be brief.
Yes, we have the Simon's family. Sarah Simon and Thomas Simon, his grandpa. They had some children. They had Sister Peters, 5 girls. Sister Peters, Sister Betty, Mamacito, and Stella. And all those are the Simon, and Aunt Leet. Those were the 5 Simons, and they had other children that came down. We all know Teacher Mona. All those were from Sister Betty. Yeah.
Yeah, just one more quick thing, just to finish that chart. So you had the Simons and the 5 children. So those from Estella Brown, that is what created that combination with Clarence Brown, which Clarence spoke about. Am I clear here? And then you had Augusta Peters. We used to call her Grandma Peters. So that is Miss Hobson, that particular group of people, all right, who was Grandma's sister. Then you had one they call Aunt Leet. She went to the south of the island. So those are the Ephraims. Tommy Ephraim, I believe my colleague Louise X used to be in our class. So it's from that particular group. So those are the others. Then you had Aunt Betty. So then that line was like the Jacksons. They came down from a Bobby Jackson combination. Vance and Sister Casilda and Teacher Mona, and you go Calvin and that particular, you guys. So that came from that branch. And then my understanding as well that there was a boy child, which my mother told me about. Okay, before that, before I got to Myrtle, there was a boy child. And they said that he used to preach. Mom said he used to preach to bottle and trees. And when he was about 12 or so, he died. All right, he was Thomas Simon. And then there was Myrtle. All right, there was also Myrtle. So there were 5 girls and 1 boy. But the key thing about Thomas Simon, my mom says that Thomas Simon, he was a lay preacher in the Methodist church. And having received the gospel from his wife, Sarah Phillip, then became Simon. Then they embraced the Adventist message. But because he was the lay preacher for Liberta, John Hughes, English Harbor, way down to Old Road, that influence was critical in terms of the spreading of the Advent message. So I'll leave that there. Thanks. Okay, they're telling me about Mamacito. I don't know much about her. So can you say about Mamacito?
Her correct name was Edith. And I remember as a child, she has always been blind. I know she lived, it might have been in Santo Domingo or something. and then came here. But all my life, she used to live with Aunt Stella, had no children. So she was the sixth sister. She has no children. Right, Mamacito.
Okay, Mamacito, as most of you, many of you might not know Mamacito, but Mamacito was the person who was responsible for having my mother here in Antigua, Tyzina James. She was responsible for having my mother here. Mamacito went to Santo Domingo. She met with Sister Eva. She met with Sister Eva in Santo Domingo. And after coming back to Antigua, both of them, Sister Eva went on to Canada and met my grandmother in Canada, asking for someone to raise Tyzina. Sister Eva recommended, she sent her to Antigua to live with Mamacito. After my mother came to Antigua, that's where she came, that's how she came to Antigua, living here with Mamacito. Mamacito was actually my mother's mother here in Antigua. That's why my mother went and worked with Jerry Peters as a teacher. And that's how my mother became Teacher Tyzina.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. The purpose of us coming together from all these different parts of the world to come to a place in a time such as this is to learn more about each other. And so rather than having a presentation, we're having a symposium. And people are learning so much more than they never knew. And I think it's imperative that even though the names mean nothing to quite a few people in this room today, we need to hear them, otherwise we lose our legacy, we lose our history, we lose our names, we lose understanding about who we are. So even though this may feel protracted, it's still, as Uncle Silton says, important. Important. It's our history. The whole reason for us to be able to come together is to once again find out more of each other. And we have a week to do it in. Not all have it done tonight. But what we have shared tonight is great. And we need to find each other, and we need to find Clarence and Aldith and Stafford and tell them, don't just keep it in your heads, share it. We have a history that's as valuable as the Queen of England's or the King of England's. And we've got to talk about it, okay? Listen, we're here, and we need to sing finally, before announcements, Bind Us Together. Hezroy, I'll look for you now, please. You're talking about great musicians. I'm looking for Hezroy, and I'm going to ask all of us. I don't know, it's an impossibility to ask you to actually touch somebody, hold somebody's hand as we stand up and sing Bind Us Together. But then again, if Hezroy doesn't touch... Jared is there? So look at that. Of course he is, because I was just about to say, we can sing. If he can't play, we can sing. Bind Us Together. Please stand up. We're going to have our benediction after we've sung Bind Us Together. You know how this goes. Thank you, musicians. Sister Antonia, be ready. Be ready. Bind us together, Lord. Don't look at me, look at other people around you. Look at other people. Don't just look straight forward. Look at these faces, because we may not see them for a while. Bind us together, we'll bind us together with love. Then, oh, that's right. Make the connection. Let's hold hands across the aisle. There is only one King. There is only one bar. Let's sing it again. That is why we sing. Nice. Together, Lord, bind us together with love. Okay. Sister Antonia, you come and give us the benediction, please. Nice.
Let us all bow our heads for prayer. Dear kind and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the time we have spent together as family. We thank you, Lord, for all those who came safely as they traveled from overseas. Thank you for the pleasant sitting we have had. Help us, dear Lord, as we get to know each other, that we'll have a better appreciation for one another. Take us now to our various homes in safety, and bless us throughout the rest of this night. For we ask it all in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Please take a seat whilst I briefly go through a few announcements. Just to remind you, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, hike to the ancestral grounds, meeting at Falmouth Cricket Ground. Shh. Meeting at Falmouth Cricket Ground at 6 o'clock in the morning. The question is asked, why 6 o'clock in the morning? As Noel Cowles will say, mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midnight sun. We are not doing that. It's the best time to be able to go out and do it in a cool way. Please make sure that you are bringing water, snacks, layering your clothing, and using sun cream. Particularly bring the water. But 6 o'clock, if you look at announcements, and we're going to be using announcements a lot in WhatsApp, you will see the reference for Falmouth Cricket Ground and a number of environments that we're going to, or venues that we're going to. So that's tomorrow morning. Family visits take place from about 10 o'clock. If you can give notice to relatives that you're visiting, otherwise all of us will be at Aunt Vel's house. Aunt Vel, they said yesterday. So try and give notice if you can. Sip and Paint is at 6 o'clock and the movie night, 6 till 9 o'clock at St. Paul's Empowerment Centre, and that's at the bottom of the main road. The reference, again, is in the announcement. It was put in today. Easels are available. Iwala, just to let you know that easels are available, but if you're just coming along to watch and probably have a few nibbles, it will cost $10 if you haven't booked to have nibbles and drinks. But if you just come to gossip and chat and talk about today, you're welcome to do that as well, okay? And then just to say finally, we'll pick up other announcements on Wednesday, but Beach Day is from 11 o'clock at Fry's on Tuesday morning through till about 5 o'clock. Collect your wristband from us if you have paid for your core package, and then you'll be able to show that to the caterers. So wristbands are available from the venue that you have gone to, like Catamaran or Sip and Paint or wherever. But on Tuesday is a big day, a big family day at the beach, and we look forward to seeing you there. Any questions, please get in contact with me. Yes, Iwala, please. Say it loud.
Good evening, everyone. In reference to activities for Wednesday, for the catamaran, it's quite a few persons who would have already booked and paid for your catamaran. Because of the fact that it is a working day and parking may not be readily available free, you may have to pay for it. We will be having buses leaving here at 7:45. If you don't mind paying for parking, you want to drive, you must be at the pier for 8:45 on Wednesday morning. If you need to take the bus, you can let myself or Auntie Pauline know so that we can make a note of it, and you will be tagged. Okay, thank you.
Very quickly for the beach picnic, please bring sporting equipment. Bring a rope, bring a volleyball net, bring a cricket bat. I'm looking for Al for that one. Bring equipment so that we can play all day. Any other questions that you have, please send them as an email.
And you said about the wristbands. Where do we find the wristbands?
Wristbands are going to be issued at the venue. Rather than giving them to you now, We're going to give them to you before you get on the catamaran, when you come to the beach. Right? So you will get your wristbands. We have them, but in order to be able to identify yourself to caterers and so forth, we will give you your wristband upon your arrival at whatever the venue is. Is that enough? Because I know you're tired and you have sweaty hands. Ready to go. Done? We done? We done? Go out now and continue the meeting and greeting there with people. Thank you so much. We'll see you hiking, family visiting, sipping and